The Human Resources IT system for hiring, training, and evaluation at the Department of Homeland Security is now 17 years old. It's one of the legacy systems the agency's Inspector General says hinders the agency's mission. John Zangardi is president at Redhorse Corporation. He's former chief information officer at the Department of Homeland Security. John, welcome. Thanks for coming on the program. I did a quick check before you came on the air, and I read that the Department of Homeland Security was stood up December 25th, 2002. I'm no math expert, but it sounds like the IT system that I referred to is pretty much as old as the department. Is that the issue here, the age of these legacy systems, or is there something else at play?
Look, Francis, thank you for having me here. It's been an awful long time since we've met and talked. So is it an issue? So my view on legacy is anything that old is probably a problem. But I'd like to comment a little bit about the OIG report, Office of the Inspector General. I'm a firm believer that the OIG is absolutely important and critical, as a taxpayer to helping people understand where government is doing well and falling short. But I'd like to add a little color to the report because I think it's important to put it in context. And in the report, they talk about movement to the cloud and data center consolidation. And one of the things that caught my attention in the report, and because context is important, is the move out of areas, zones A and B at the Stennis data center. The context there is against mission and the need on the border to keep a particular application and system running continuously. As you might recall, as we were moving out of A and B zones at Stennis, there was a surge on the border. In fact, the surge on the border was going on for a long time. We had a customer who was going to come in and take those spaces. We needed to move out, but we needed to find a way to move all the systems out. In the process of moving, we found one system that dated back to 2017 in terms of not having patches. And the hardware it was running on was 7+ years old. And the reason it was like that was because of mission. They felt they could never turn off the system because of a fear that they would not be able to support the surge at the border. We had to deal with that. And as you can imagine, that was an all hands effort to get that to a point where we could pick it up, modernize it, and move it out to the cloud. It was very successful. But along the way, you run into a lot of things that make that challenging. If the surge on the border is continuing and the amount of time that the system will be down because of its implementation and testing, for example, started at 32 hours, we had to find a way to get that down to a minimum amount of time and execute it in the evenings. We were able to get it down to 4 hours. My point is, when you start looking at these systems and you start digging into each one of them, there's a lot of eaches. And each of those eaches sometimes require an all hands on deck kind of approach that requires you to take a lot of talent to that particular problem. There's no excuse for the system not having been patched or updated in such a long time. But the thing is, when we found it, we went after it. But it does take time away from other projects. That kind of points to the criticality of your original question. We need to make sure across government, across the federal government, that legacy systems are being modernized and updated.
The other two systems that the IG points to are the financial management system and a FEMA grant management system. Who owns those systems? Are those in the office of the CIO, John, or are you working in collaboration with other CXOs? Were you, when you were the CIO there, working in collaboration with other CXOs but not having autonomy over those systems to make final decisions?
Right. So none of those systems were under the operational or execution control of the Office of the Chief Information Officer. The HR system is under CHICO. The financial system is under the CFO, and the FEMA grant system is under FEMA. Now, let me point out, and particularly in the case of the HR system and the financial system, we in the CIO office worked very closely with Stacy Marcotte, who was the acting CFO at the time, and Angie Bailey, who was or is still the CHICO for DHS. In both cases, we sat in the CIO on the governance board, and we made sure we had the right executives there. In fact, for the governance board for the financial management system, myself or my deputy attended almost all of the meetings. My director for IT operations was there to support it. CISO was there to support it. We put the manpower on it, and I can assure you that if I walked into Angie or Stacy's office and said, hey, we have a problem, they would have taken appropriate action. But to your point, we didn't own the systems. The systems belonged to someone else. We contributed technically and from a governance point of view. I will say on the financial system, the decision in 2017 to take the system away to stop utilizing another department's financial management solution was the right one. When DHS decided to go on its own, I think the right decision was made. And as I was leaving DHS last November, they were tracking pretty well to rolling out what they needed to roll out with TSA and Coast Guard. So I think they've made some progress over the last two plus years.
We have about a minute left, John. My goal here is not to suggest to Angie Bailey or Karen Evans or Troy Edgar what they should do with these systems, but to inform people who are watching from the outside looking in. What do you expect to see happen next?
I think you'll see the financial system roll out successfully, and I think it'll have to be rolled out across DHS. There are risk items that they'll need to evaluate. Karen Evans is a seasoned IT professional, and I am sure she'll make it happen. Real quickly, though, before we get off, I'd like to adjust the recommendations at the end of the OIG report and suggest, while they're good, the right recommendations would be for them to start thinking about consolidating a network and SOCs in DHS. There's 16 SOCs, Security Operations Centers, in the department, and consolidating them down and driving to a single network could drive savings after an investment. They need to continue driving changes to how they hire IT and cyber people. Salaries for those people lag industry. And while I was there, we lost people to industry, and you can't argue with someone needing or wanting to go out and make more money. So those two important recommendations right there, and how I think DHS could go about improving the IT posture at the organization.
John, those are great observations. Karen Evans addressed all of them when she was on the program a couple of weeks ago, and you can see that conversation at govmatters.tv. John, thanks very much for coming on. It's great to have you back.
Francis, take care. Pleasure seeing you again.